We often assume that success is the exclusive domain of the smartest, most talented people in the room. We think that if someone isn't achieving their goals, it is because they lack intelligence, resources, or natural ability. However, the reality of human achievement is far more nuanced, and perhaps more encouraging. If you look at the research, the defining trait of successful people is not just intelligence, but persistence, the ability to keep moving forward despite repeated failures. In fact, the most successful individuals are often those who have failed the most. They treat failure not as a signal to stop, but as data to be analyzed. While others quit after a few setbacks, these individuals persist. They understand that their beliefs about themselves act as a filter for their entire reality. If you spend years reciting a script about your limitations, telling yourself you are not smart enough, not talented enough, or that your goals are impossible, that script eventually becomes your truth. It becomes physiologically and psychologically limiting. To understand why this happens, we must distinguish between three concepts: facts, faith, and beliefs. A fact is an objective truth that remains the same whether you believe in it or not. Faith is a conviction that requires no evidence at all. Beliefs, however, sit in the middle. They are convictions that are open to revision based on new evidence. When you hold on to a belief that you can improve, you remain open to new possibilities. When you cling to a limiting belief, you close yourself off from the very outcomes you desire. There is a fascinating study from the 1950s, the forced swim experiment, that illustrates the power of this belief system. Researchers placed wild rats in a cylinder of water to see how long they would swim before giving up. On average, these rats would swim for about 15 minutes before succumbing to fatigue and drowning. However, the experiment changed when the researchers intervened. They would pluck the rats out of the water just before they reached their limit, let them rest, and then put them back in. Because the rats had learned that salvation was possible, that they weren't necessarily going to drown, their persistence changed dramatically. After being conditioned with this hope, they didn't just swim for another 15 minutes, they swam for up to 60 hours. Their physical bodies hadn't changed. They had the capacity for endurance the whole time. What changed was their internal belief. They had learned that they were not hopeless, and that shift in belief unlocked a level of performance that was over 200 times greater than before. This brings us to the core of human motivation. Most of us have been taught that motivation is a simple linear equation. If you do a behavior, you get a benefit. But this model is incomplete. Motivation is actually a triangle. On one side, you have the behavior, what you need to do. On the second side, you have the benefit, why you need to do it. But the third side, the side that holds the entire triangle together, is belief. Without the belief that you are capable of performing the behavior or deserving of the benefit, the triangle collapses. You lose your motivation, not because you lack the how-to knowledge, but because you lack the belief in self foundation. This also explains why generic visualization exercises often fail. Many people are taught to visualize the trophy, the medal, or the financial result. However, research shows that simply dreaming about the outcome can actually make you less likely to achieve it. When you visualize the victory, your brain interprets that relaxation as the benefit itself, leaving you less motivated to do the hard work required. Athletes, by contrast, do not visualize the trophy. They visualize the obstacles. They mentally rehearse what they will do when they face a challenge, when they get tired, or when a competitor tries to block them. They visualize the process of overcoming resistance. If you want to achieve something difficult, you must stop dreaming about the final result and start planning for the inevitable obstacles. When you anticipate the challenge, you are emotionally ready to handle it rather than being blindsided by it. Finally, we must redefine our relationship with discomfort. Human motivation is primarily driven by a desire to escape discomfort. We try to manage our time, our weight, and our money to minimize pain. However, we often confuse pain with suffering. Pain is simply a physiological signal. It is data from your nervous system. Suffering, on the other hand, is the interpretation of that signal. When you feel your heart racing, or your breath quickening while running, that is a positive signal of exertion. If you felt those same sensations while sitting at your desk, you might panic. The physical feeling is the same, but the interpretation, and therefore the experience, is entirely different. You have the power to shape your perception. By viewing pain as a neutral signal rather than a reason to suffer, you can endure challenges that would break others. You are not defined by the pain you feel. You are defined by the belief you hold while you feel it. Have a nice day.